Hi, I'm Belle, and welcome to Vintage Family Recipes. Throughout this series, I will be making recipes that have been passed down in my family, some of which are over 300 years old. I will be making each recipe as it is written, only substituting ingredients if I cannot find the original type. Today we're starting with an applesauce cake, first written down in 1784. Although it's possibly even older. I wanted to make this video in the home I grew up in to showcase my mom's kitchen where I spent so many happy years. But it didn't turn out well. I'm back home in my own kitchen for a second attempt. So let's get started. The first thing you need for this recipe is applesauce. In the 1700s, they did not have jarred applesauce. You couldn't buy it anywhere. In New York, that's where I grew up, many families still make their own applesauce. So I'm making applesauce from scratch. This recipe is in the family for so long, it's not even written down. You want to use apples that are soft because you're gonna make them really mushy, and they don't take as long to cook if you have mushy apples to begin with. Not brown, just what's considered a soft apple. I'm going to use a shake of lemon juice, or you can use a lemon slice and put it in with the water. You'd have to take the lemon slice out if you did that. You're going to use a quarter of a cup of water. I'm using 4 apples, and it will yield about 1.5 cups of applesauce. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon. That looks like a lot, but it's really not for applesauce. And I'm going to sprinkle in a little bit of nutmeg so that as they cook, the spices are there but being absorbed. Then I will use more when I mix the applesauce in as part of the cake batter. When I put the spices in, it was about 10 minutes into the cooking process of the applesauce. You want to give it a little time to get soft and absorb the spices. So as soon as they're soft enough to mash, I need to pour the extra water out. I'm going to try using a cast iron pan because that is what would have been used when my grandmother was making this. When I made it in New York, I did not use a cast iron pan. And when I first took the cake tester to test if it was done, it came out clean. But a few hours later, it was moist in the center again. And I think 2 things happened. I think the first thing that happened was it was the wrong type of pan. I think the second thing that happened is my applesauce still had too much moisture in it. And so as it cooled, the moisture was released from the applesauce, and it caused the cake to become too moist in the center. The water is all out of the apples. And so I'm going to take a taste to make sure I like the consistency before I attempt to mash it down any further. If I don't like the consistency, I will add just a little bit more water to get the consistency that I want. It still has a little crunch to it instead of a straight up mush. So I'm just going to add a dab of water. And I will boil it down until the water is completely gone. Some of you might ask why I didn't put sugar in the applesauce. I don't put sugar in the applesauce because there's going to be sugar in the cake. And so I've only used water, the lemon juice, the cinnamon, and the nutmeg. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in 2 teaspoons of baking soda. You have to do it while your applesauce is hot. Don't wait. So if you had cold applesauce, you would have to warm it up before you put the baking soda in. Then you mix it quickly together. I'm using a cup of sugar. You notice I'm mixing it by hand. You could use a mixer if you wanted to. Then I'm going to add 1/2 cup of butter. Make sure your butter is really soft before you put it in, because it becomes much harder to mix it if it's not nice and soft. There again, it could be a little less soft if you were using a hand mixer. But since my great-great-great-grandmother didn't have mixers, and I'm making this the way they would have, I'm going to use super soft butter, but not melted. It would be too runny if you melt it. Then I need 2 cups of flour. So now I'm going to mix in the flour. The butter and the applesauce are the liquid in this. No milk, no eggs. I got to make sure that I get the butter completely mixed in and I don't leave any little chunks of butter sitting in the batter. I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of raisins. It there again says raisins and currants to taste. I could not find currants near me anywhere. I can order them online. I could add something like cranberries or dried blueberries, but I've decided instead I'm just going to add extra raisins. So I'm going to add another 1/4 cup of raisins to the mixture. And now I'm going to add spices. My grandmother's recipe says spice to taste. I'm going to use a variety of spices that I like to use when I bake. I am going to use allspice. I'm going to use cloves, nutmeg, cinnamon, ginger, and cardamom. Mix all those spices in really well. Finish getting the butter nice and done. Fantastic consistency right here. I am going to go and I'm going to put it into the cast iron pan. My grandmother's recipe says that she bakes it at 350. The original recipe said bake it in a medium hot fire. So I was like, what does that even mean? It means between 350 and 375 degrees. I'm going to set my oven to 350. Time to put the baby in the oven. Well, the applesauce cake, not the real baby. Obviously. There we go. I'm going to set my timer for 15 minutes because I want to make sure it does not burn. It is probably not anywhere near done. However, I feel like I need to just keep oh yes, not even near done. See how raw it is still? But it is browning around the edges, so that's a good sign. We're gonna go for another 10 minutes. I'm gonna give it 5 more minutes. Oh, that is good. I'm going to just stick it in there. Oh yes. We'll wait a while. I'll put a piece up and I'll have my family test it and give me their feedback.
It's good. It's it almost has kind of like a soft like gingerbread texture.
Okay.
I like it.
Join me next time for Vintage Family Recipes.
I don't know why I waved.
I don't either.